are to the Smart Africa, Smart Cities agenda, what they're doing, what they need to do, how they partner with private sector and others, and we will also rely on your input to make this a holistic conversation. My name is Nanjira Sambuli. I work with the World Wide Web Foundation, and at the core of what we do is make sure that the internet is accessible for all these things to be possible, especially as we're talking about smart everything that is going to be powered by the internet. We have to make sure that happens. I will go ahead and just do a quick introduction of my distinguished panelists here. Right next to me, I have Diane, I have to say this right, Karusisi, got it, Diane, right? All right, CEO of Bank of Kigali. And I have Ashish Thakkar. I hope I got that right as well. Nobody got it right, okay. Who's the founder of Mara Group. And they will be guiding us through the conversation, but once again, I will emphasize that we will need your input. As you can see, we are a smaller panel that was initially announced, so there's only so much talking we can do on this side, so we'll rely on you to have some input in this as well. So, we want to assess what the role of the business industry is in, having this smart cities agenda actually become a reality. And I'll start with you, Ashish, just because I want to have a conversation that's not so much about conditionalities and what should happen, but what's starting to happen and what needs to happen. So what are some of the innovations in terms of partnerships with other sectors, so private sector, with public sector and others that you've seen that should be replicated or could stand to be a successful model for others to emulate in trying to realize the smart cities agenda? Yeah, my panelists are gonna need their mics on if this is going to work. Somebody please assist us, thank you.
Okay, cool, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Clearly, we are transforming Africa with this mic system. It's amazing. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I think there is no better place and no better leader to host this conference than Rwanda and President Kagame. So thank you to our hosts. There are some phenomenal examples that are out there, particularly if we take the host country as an example. There's been the drones project, which has been phenomenal, where blood is being delivered via drones. The first drones airport in the world is over here. Kigali being Wi-Fi enabled is another great example of how the public and private sector gets together and actually creates tangible solutions. There's been lots of other initiatives. I mean, fiber cable, Rwanda has led the way in that, which has really made a difference. But when you step back and think, how is all of this been possible, and how can we take things to the next level? I think the critical factor is that we need to take risks. We need to be able to take some risk from both the public sector and the private sector to try and see how certain initiatives can work, be prepared that they could fail, and how we could pivot if they did fail, and try and make them work again. Because I think as a continent, we have such a huge advantage in terms of, we've heard this too many times, and it's a phrase which is overused, but we do have the ability to truly leapfrog. When you think about the number of mobile phones on our continent, when you think about the fact, and I want you guys to visualize this, that there are going to be 700 million smartphones across our continent by the year 2020. Within 3-4 years, 700 million smartphones. That's going to totally change the way education, healthcare, commerce, and everything is done. So when we think about all of that, we need real, tangible, practical solutions that will make that happen. And the public sector is an absolutely critical piece of this. So the public-private partnership on creating initiatives, but being able to take the risk. If I may, the other one, which is a great example, is Kenya's central bank enabled mobile money and let it be tested and took the risk of seeing how it goes. And it was absolutely, M-Pesa was definitely misused at the beginning. but it's become tighter in terms of how regulation works and everything else. But due to taking that risk from both the public and the private sector, it's been a huge global phenomenon. So like that, I think there's so much that both sides should do and could do.
Thank you. If I may just do a quick follow-up there. Especially in the ICT sector, which is underpinning what we're talking about as far as the smart cities agenda goes, many of the actors who would fit within that private sector are small and medium-sized enterprises. So how do they get to the table to be part of that with the private-public partnerships? Are there tips? Is there a hidden menu book about how they get to the table? Or are we just talking about established private sector actors? So how do SMEs also get into playing in this game?
So, I mean, my view, and I'd love, Diane is obviously the best of the public sector and the private sector combined, so she's got great experience. My view is, I think our governments are extremely receptive to SMEs and large established organizations. I don't think the times of multinationals or large companies only have a seat at the table, I think is gone. And starting off as a young entrepreneur on the continent, I still think I'm young, but that's maybe past now, but I'm not going to let it go. But starting off as a very, very small business on the continent, times were very, very different before. And I think post-2008, the global crisis, I think our governments also kind of started appreciating local businesses a lot more. And SMEs, the innovation that comes out of SMEs is just truly phenomenal. So I think it's a lot better now in terms of how the receptiveness is from governments towards SMEs compared to others.
Thank you for that. And I hope there's some SMEs in the room that can step in when we get to the question and answer session. But turning to you, Diane, I'm working in the banking sector that has been the word is disrupted by the ICTs. How are you responding to all the digital revolution? Again, yet another overused word, but very important one, I guess, apt for the times. How are you responding to spearhead innovation and catalyze it?
I think it's the right thing to say that banks are being disrupted. We are still there, we are still relevant, but for how long is the question. But what we're doing is to really step up our digital capabilities to respond to customers' needs. Customers they want more convenience, they want more security, they want more services delivered from wherever they are. So we have to respond to that, because if we don't, then someone else is going to deliver the service, and the risk is just us not being relevant anymore. Mm. So we are doing that, and there's something particular in Africa, is people are calling for more inclusiveness, if you can say it that way. Access to finance is still a problem. For example, in Rwanda, we only have 25% of adult population with a formal banking account, banking relationship. So for us, the challenge is not only convenience for customers, it's really taking our services to everyone. And this is what we're doing. We are being innovative in the way we deliver services. As Ashish was saying, people now are able to access loans without even being a bank customer, which is happening in Kenya with M-Shwari, and we're trying to do the same here. So what we are doing is really to step up our capabilities, to improve efficiency in our operations, in our business, but also to make sure that our customers get better services, more convenience, and more security.
Thank you. And Ashish had mentioned that you should also step in and talk about the SME question. And I don't know, for you as banks, with all the disruption happening and all this ICT-enabled sort of like disruptions like fintech and others, how are you seeing the future of the traditional established private sector actors in not only disrupting themselves or adapting to the disruptions, but also supporting those who are from the small and medium-sized enterprises who have new ideas to be absorbed and to be able to scale?
Yeah, I think Ashish got it right. Established businesses are not very agile, so they're not fast to move into new technologies. And SMEs, I mean, most innovators are SMEs. The big companies we see today started in a garage as small companies, a few people. So this is what we're seeing even in Africa. We are seeing small companies offering services that can be, bought or used by bigger companies. So, of course, for us, it also poses the question of relevance. How do we, as an established company with over 1,000 employees and branches across the country, How do we remain hungry for business? How do we remain humble and say, anything can happen, so we need really to step up and innovate? Because for others, for smaller companies, it's very easy to innovate because you have few people, you don't have the corporate governance with a board that you have to convince, etc. So they innovate much faster than us. And we are trying to say, the world is changing. If we don't innovate, if we don't act like an SME, we are just going to be not relevant. So SMEs have the advantage of being more agile. Most people in the SME sector are young. Ashish was saying it. He made an empire from 15. I think he started at the age of 15. So this is what we're seeing happening. Young people with innovative ideas, establishing new businesses, and taking the businesses of people who've been there for 100 years.
Right, thank you. Now, at the tail end of this, all these innovations, everything we want to do with technology and ICT is a function of the demand side also being connected. So the issues of whether people are connected, what kinds of forms of connection they do have an impact on how business is then going to scale, so to speak. So in your view, maybe based on your own experiences or what you've seen elsewhere, how are business community leaders engaging in the policy discussions around what it will take for the enabling environment, which includes people being connected so that these customers are ready and the market is ready? What are the kind of engagements there from the business community, maybe in your own experience or what you're seeing that should be emulated and others here should think about? Any one of you can take that. We're few, so. Yeah, go for it. Any one of you. Yeah.
So I think that the key word here is partnerships. When I think of Smart Africa, I think of connectivity and data. Connectivity is becoming, everyone is, I'm sure everyone here is connected. But the next thing is data. How do we connect data? Because connected data is going to give us intelligence, is going to help us to develop better new products. Mm-hmm. So today, as a bank, I have millions of data records, millions. But MTN, which is the largest telco, they also have trillions of data. So for us to create new businesses, new ideas, we need to make the data tell us what to do. Because connected data, they create all the relationships. It really gives us business intelligence. So what we need, I think, as businesses is to first agree that we have to partner. We cannot, work in silos and expect to, do business. We have to find a way, a fair way to share the data and make sure that the data speak for us and tell us this is the direction to go. We, as bankers, we've not been very good at utilizing the wealth of data that we have, which others are doing. So today, we have huge servers with huge amounts of data, but now the teams are realizing the value of data, and sometimes I feel the data we have in our servers is worth much more than the money we have in our vaults. So I really think we need to make better use of data in partnering and letting the data show us the way.
If I could just add to that, I think I couldn't agree more with Diane. I think there's we launched, as the Mara Foundation, we launched something called the HHC Global Entrepreneurship Index, where we ranked 85 countries around the world according to how entrepreneurially friendly they are towards young entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, and SMEs. And we didn't make it an African index intentionally because we wanted to benchmark our countries against those outside. So we did 85 countries in total, and it was quite remarkable to see, and it was measured on several pillars, right? So it's not the doing business index, it's very, very different. It's geared towards access to finance. All of our countries talk about innovation, but then we don't have, some of our countries don't have the right IP laws in place, right? So what's the point of creating innovation if we can't even protect it in our own territories? And, the whole thesis, and I've said this and been criticized for it, which I love and therefore say it more, which is, I don't think we should be excited about bringing Silicon Valley to Africa. We should think about how we can take Africa to Silicon Valley. And therefore, how do we create that enabling platform from every angle, from access to finance, to innovation, to infrastructure, to all of these different elements? So that has been quite telling. in terms of the countries, and there's been a few countries that have reached out to us and been proactive to say, how do we actually, make a difference and put some of these things into action in order to jump up in the ranking, and more importantly, create a better environment for SMEs and young and women entrepreneurs. So I think, it boils down to also ensuring that the right public policy exists in countries as well.
So I'm curious, if we push that further, what are some of the policy gaps we're seeing? Because I think the business community is quite aligned and understands that this wave of technology is doing things differently. It means they have to think radically. Everybody else, civil society is talking about the concerns about, safety. So like if the bank is using my data and maybe wants to share that information with somebody else, the trust aspects are being addressed. But when it comes to public policy, there's a lot of reports and recommendations being put out there. But what do we need to start seeing practically from government to move in lockstep with all that's happening in the business community and what's happening, out in the civil society as well? So maybe based on the recommendations you had, what are practical steps we think governments should take that we should maybe articulate for those who might be in the room around how they're going to be enablers of us to become smart Africa?
I think government is, at least in Rwanda, I speak for Rwanda, government is doing a lot in terms of getting the people connected. But I think the next, stumbling block is getting data regulated. Of course, regulation is always not an easy territory. We need to find a way to regulate, not too much regulate, because you don't want to, constrain businesses. But you need to find a way and for people to share data, protecting privacy of our people. So this is something I'm not sure any country in the world has been able to do this to us in a satisfactory way. But as Africa, I think we have the opportunity to innovate, because today when you think of the big companies that have the bulk of world's data, these are the likes of Google, Facebook, with the muscle, it will be difficult to regulate them. But for us in Africa, we don't have yet the Googles of this world. So I think we have the opportunity to lead in terms of data regulation, because this is now the commodity of the future, actually of the present already. We have oil is very well regulated, and all other commodities are very well regulated. So we have the opportunity to lead in terms of data regulation, to make sure that the data is shared, is used, utilized to get better services, but also we protect the privacy of our people. I don't know how to do that. I hope some people here can advise on how best to do that. But I think it's really high time that we think of doing that.
So in that configuration, just out of curiosity, we're just like hoping government is still, not getting it, and then we move the idea that innovation always predates the regulation? Or do we actually work with government and say we need some sort of like responsive and adaptive regulation because we want to use this data? Data is going to be at the core of all these smart cities. All of us are beaming out data based on our connectivity right now. Somebody's collecting it. And if they're going to use it to make some business intelligence solutions, what's the role of a government as a public protector in this space? Do we just hope they turn a blind eye? Do we work responsibly with them? What should be the message to them about that?
So I think, again, businesses can have an advisory role, because businesses are already sharing data. We already work with telcos, with insurance companies, etc., to share somehow the data. But it becomes more difficult when, for example, ourselves as a bank, we're coming with a product using data that we are getting from our partners. The data comes with sometimes a very high price tag. And in the negotiation, you sort of wished someone was there to tell you how you price the data that you have collected in a free way, because we collect data, it's free for us, and then we price it, and sometimes very high. We wish someone was there to tell us there are limits, but we want to be there. We don't want the hamper business and to say you are not selling this data or you are not sharing this data, but we even want regulation to tell us or advise how we can organize the data. Because even for data to be shared, you need it to be organized in such a way that databases can talk to each other. Right. And we need to find a way to organize our data, so someone who is somewhere in the Silicon Valley can just connect to our data and tell us this is something. These are the things that we can do. So it's a difficult territory. I don't want to be very adventurous and tell the people how to do it. But I think it's high time for us to start thinking about how to do it and do it effectively, because it will really be something important to make Africa smart.
So innovation within regulation as well is something we need to champion going forward. Ashish, do you want to jump in there?
I think Diane's touched on really, really important points here. I think over-regulation can really create issues, especially in an unknown territory where we're still kind of learning, and at the same time, zero monitoring or regulation can also create issues down the line. But when you think about at what pace the world is moving at, Google knows what you search for, Facebook knows what you like, Amazon knows what you buy. I mean, the trends that these giants are actually encompassing is amazing. And as banks in the country, naturally we have a lot of data, and to Diana's point, we can actually create a lot of types of products and services around that to actually enhance the user experience for our clients. We today in Rwanda, through BPR Atlas Mara, we have about over 300,000 mobile banking customers that are active on this, right? So how do we further enhance that? How do we make their experience on a phone much better? But data is going to be a massive, massive element. I mean, today, autonomous vehicles are generating a gigabyte of data every second, right? It's just everything is moving at such a rapid pace. To my earlier point of 700 million smartphones, just imagine the amount of data that's going to come out of the usability of all of that. So, but this can have a massive, massive positive impact on our economies, on our people, and on livelihoods in terms of how we can actually make things easier, more seamless, and better. But at the same time, we need to ensure that there is going to be some monitoring and regulation in a light touch manner, which can become more sophisticated, like the mobile money example earlier. The other angle is going to be shared economies. And shared economies more and more is becoming a bigger topic globally. How do governments regulate that? In some markets than others, that's going to become more of a sensitive topic. So again, these are the kind of things that we have an ability to actually have dialogue with our governments, but the minute our governments feel we're getting too far and over-regulated, those countries are going to fall behind in this as well. So it's finding that right balance, which means working with the private sector.
Right. And one more question before we open it up to the audience is around the ethical aspects of what we already have as assets, whether as businesses, the data component being the core of it. Again, we're all beaming our data right now. So it's one hand to use it to enhance the user experience, but how is that going to be done in a way that still restores and retains user trust? Because the risk is not just those who are unconnected, it's those who are already connected, disconnecting because they just don't trust the platforms we're creating anymore. When you rightly brought in the global conversation about platforms like Facebook and Google, and look at the conversations about whether we can trust them to, they're showing us what we want based on what we've been saying. Now, for African businesses that are going to be leveraging all these assets, digital assets, data, ICT of any nature, where do you feel the ethical conversation comes in? And I'll leave it broadly enough like that because some people tend to think that ethics is another way. It's like regulation, right? It's like, oh man, that's just going to slow us down. And everybody else has gotten the advantage by not necessarily playing by some rules. But what are the responsibilities that should be baked into the smart cities agenda for business leaders who will be leveraging these assets to make sure that it's not just about connecting people and making them consumers, but also they're benefiting across the board and not just as data points?
I think the objective of everything we do and we talk about is really improving livelihoods of people, in cities especially. When we talk about smart healthcare, smart education, it's to make sure that we can achieve more, very fast. So when the people remain at the center of everything we do, I think this would create smart, and people won't be afraid of carrying a device and if they feel like they're benefiting, they're getting their services at a cheaper cost, they're gaining in terms of convenience, in terms of efficiency, I think people will have trust in the digital agenda. Mm-hmm. For us as bank, I think we've been enjoying a lot of trust from the public because when you think about it, people come to us with their savings. So, and when you think about it, the trust comes from, the bank being a very sometimes highly regulated sector. They know that there are laws to protect depositors. They know that the central bank is watching over every bank to make sure we're not misusing public funds. So there's two things. They're developing solutions that help people in their daily lives. It has to be tangible. It can't just be somewhere. It has really to be tangible. And again, I'm sorry, but I'll come back to regulation because people want a watchdog, someone to say, this is fair, this is not fair. People want to feel protected. And this is, again, I'm coming back to the point of regulation. We need some sort of regulation. And I think as a bank, we enjoy this regulation and we value it very much. And we think it's because, of course, we are supporting people save, invest, etc., buy homes, everything. But they also know that someone is looking at us and making sure we're doing the right thing. So we have to, the agenda has to be focused on improving people's lives, and then we need to find a fair way to regulate.
Right. Ashish, any inputs?
No, I fully agree. I think taking my banking hat off and putting the entrepreneur's hat on, I wouldn't want to be disabled against global players in terms of, the privileges that they had. And at the same time, to Diane's point, it's all about how we can improve lives using these kind of platforms. So a perfect example is in Zambia, we did an agricultural product as Atlas Mara, and we tailored it towards the market and ensured that using the data, how do we actually get a higher margin for some farmers in a particular segment to take advantage of that. So all of these, if used in the right way, can have a huge positive impact, but at the same time, not everything is used in the right way most of the time. So that's also a balancing act that we need to kind of figure out.
Right. Well, the balancing act is also about including you in the conversation. So by a show of hands, we'd love to see if there are questions or inputs. We're only 3 of us, so there's only so much talking we can do. I don't know if there are mics to get to, but maybe you could, yes, there's a lady here and a lady there. I love that it's ladies. So please quickly introduce yourself and get to the question or input that you'd like to make.
Hi, my name is Andrea. I am with Carnegie Mellon University. I have a question about talent development because the numbers on the continent of unemployment are very high and they'll continue to go up. So I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about the initiatives that you're taking. I mean, and from a business leader perspective, for talent development and job creation. Thank you.
Thank you. There's another lady right down the same row.
Thank you. My name is Sandra, and I work on anything that concerns service delivery, both in public sector and private sector. My question, and I'm happy both of you are in the banking sector because we work in promoting good service delivery. And one of the challenges we usually see is that we still have a lot of customers who are not who are not connected or who do not use all the technical offers that you're offering. So my question is, how do you do to engage them? How do you do to bring them on board and let them use all the new offers you have technically? Because I know from Bank of Kigali, for instance, Diane has been very good. I know she engages customers on social media, but we still have many banks or many companies whose customers are not actually on social media or do not know how to e-bank or how to use all these offers. So my question, and I know, for instance, that in BPR, we still have a lot of queues in all these banks. So how do you make sure that your customers actually use all these platforms that you're offering them?
Thank you very much. All right there. And then we'll move to the other side of the hall.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Badru Ntege. I come from Uganda, but I work in the East African region. My question really to banks and the banking community, luckily we have 2 bankers out there. In at least 19 markets in East Africa, the people using mobile money outnumber the people using the formal banking system. Now, the banks tell us that they're addressing those people by enabling mobile money access on my bank account. But how about the other 60% of the population that are actually not in the banking system? Now, when we try to engage the banks, there's this concept that bankers say about the concept of cost to serve, which means that how much does it cost to serve the people? That's why they're not in the rural areas. So what actually is going to happen to that mass of the community? And the concept is about numbers. If you can bring another 5 million people into the banking environment, then your cost to serve is going to go down. So we're going to have better services. But I'm operating in 6 of the East African countries, and the banking is the biggest pain. It's an evil that we can avoid. I have to use the banks. But a loan is a painful thing in the region. Listen, Uganda, we're paying 26% or 24% to get a loan or a mortgage. So how on earth do we create and develop businesses when we are locked up at that point? So, and to me, I think it's really the banks have failed to innovate. They still tie back in the traditional. I'm trying to get a mortgage and I have 26 signatures to sign on a piece of paper for a mortgage. I honestly do not read those pages, but they need my signature on those things. So when do we actually move on to actually really create the smart Africa we're talking about? We cannot create that if the banks are still back in the ages. And it's the same in all the banks that, at least in the 6 countries I operate, it's the same process.
Thank you. We'll take those first 3. I know there were hands that way. We will come back to you in a second, but let's address those first 3 questions.
Let me start with the question of talent developing. I think it's key. I think in many countries, we say we need to have more people in STEM, more young people, including girls, studying in mathematics, etc. I have the feeling it's good. This is for the future, but we already need some professional developments in businesses, in banking, for example, to make people aware of digital transformation and what's happening. And we are short of these solutions. Today, even for myself, I feel I want to be trained. I want to understand where we're going. I want some people to tell us this is how the world is changing and this is how you can adjust. I have IT guys, business guys. I would want to be able to tell them there's a professional course, especially for bankers, to make sure you can support the Smart Africa agenda, the Smart City agenda. We don't have that, and I'm hoping this is a call for everyone, the policymakers around Smart Africa, to also devise strategy to train current professionals in all sectors. We want to know what will be our role, to support the agenda, because if we don't know, of course, we want to do something we don't know. So I think as part of this agenda, these meetings, we really need to know, for bankers, this is how you can support the Smart Cities agenda. This is how you can integrate to make sure you can really support the smart education, healthcare agenda, etc. This is really key. And thinking about the future is good, but not enough. We have to think of the present, meaning ourselves who are professionals today. We need to really get engaged and know how we can support this agenda. The question about, I think it was about engaging customers to embrace technology. It's a good one. But today in Rwanda, for example, we have 50% of our people who are below 20 years of age. So for them, technology will be, a second nature. It won't be difficult for them to convert and to use these new technology-enabled services. But for the people who are today 50 or 40 and above, we really need to make that step and make sure that we tell them how to, be served better. Because we have these solutions, and sometimes it's frustrating. You invest a lot of money in, in mobile banking, in the app, etc., and you feel people are not using it. So what we are doing at Bank of Kigali, I'm sure you know that, we've set up a digital center at Kigali Heights. It's just across the road here. And we have iPads, we have phones, and we have people welcoming our customers and telling them what you want to do. You want to pay your taxes? By the way, you can do it from your phone. Or you can do it from your computer, and we show them how to do it. And we want them to we want to take them through the journey, because you can't expect everyone to test something for the first time and embrace a new service. So what we are doing, we want to roll out these products across the country and have people who welcome customers and ask them, what do you want to do? And tell them, by the way, you can also get, you didn't need to come all the way to the bank to get this service. You can do it this way. So this is what we're trying to do, and we're hoping we'll have more of these people, more of our customers embracing our services. So the last question, I didn't get it very well, but I hope Ashish got it better.
Sure, thank you. So if I can start off from the top as well. Talent development, job creation, extremely critical. I think several different things. In our case as Atlas Mara, when we think about the talent development side of things, we'd like to move people cross-border as well. So we've been doing quite a bit of that because it gets more exposure. Every market is very unique and independent. On the job creation side, it's been around how do we lend more to businesses? How do we lend more to SMEs? And that's where data obviously plays a big role. But lending more to businesses, lending more to SMEs, and then we have a program for mentorship, which we're very focused on towards young entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs as well. So that's the angle that we really focus on in terms of really creating the job creation and helping them create jobs for themselves more than anything. On the second question around clients and the tech savviness, and very, very, very good question. And how we've done it here is majority of our mobile banking customers today are using dumb phones, right? So, feature phones, so not the smartphones, and in a very simple format. So as much as I'd love to put 15 icons there with 15 different product offerings, we've kind of kept it really simple, big icons, very simple and very easy to understand, which makes a huge difference as well. And I think going in it that way is the only way to really tap into the customer. To Diane's point about client sensitization is obviously critical, but the ease of using it and slowly then enhancing it according to features is another critical element. The third point about the whole mobile banking versus mobile money, etc. That's the thesis of Atlas Mara. This is why we started Atlas Mara. When Bob and I created Atlas Mara, our vision was to create a positive disruptive force in financial services. And what does that mean? We've seen mobile money make a massive difference across the continent. But now, and that's been telecom operator-led, it now needs to become financial institution-led, and it needs to become mobile banking. It needs to be a lot more enhancing. 80% of our continent has mobile phone penetration, yet 20% has banking penetration. This is the bridge that we need to fill, right? That's the gap that we need to truly bridge. So this is what we're all about, and this is what we're trying to create. Actually, ironically, Rwanda is actually Atlas Mara's headquarters for digital and fintech. Our managing director who leads digital and fintech is the ex-head of Airtel Mobile Money across the continent. So he's seen it on a telecom operator's perspective across 16 different countries of how mobile money was functioning, but now it's about how do we actually create mobile banking. And it's not one size fits all. It's not a copy-paste scenario. It is market to market. And not only is it market to market, it's product by product. So how do you go that grassroots? How do you go that deep into a sector? Because to the second question's point, it's all about how we really bridge that gap and how we make it easier and more relevant. The ease of using technology is one thing, but then the relevance as well, right? I mean, are they going to get more out of it? How do we decrease typical branch networks across your offering and increase digital offerings? I don't think that 100% digital-only bank would work. I think the combination of traditional and digital is the way to go, which is what we, as Atlas Mara, BPR, are trying to do, which is what Bank of Kigali is trying to do, and that's going to be the solution going forward, which I think is a really exciting time. And just lastly on that, within the next few weeks, you'll be seeing quite a few different announcements about some of the innovation that we have created according to markets, according to segments within those markets, which are thoughtful, real, and practical in terms of usage.
Thank you. So we'll take another round of questions, preferably on this side. There's a hand right at the front, right at the back there. whoever can get to the mic can get to first, but we will take note. Yeah.
Yes, hello. My name is Ashish. I'm a diaspora member from Canada. I have my own consulting company. My question is about, there's a Smart Africa city that's a bit forgotten and disconnected, and this is the diaspora. So we're often approached by the banks here to put our money in the banks, but not often approached as service suppliers. Because, you know, we're consultants, we're developers, we're engineers, in America, in Europe, elsewhere. And the same consulting companies that are being hired here, they're the ones that are hiring us outside. So how can we, in terms of the diaspora, also engage in the transformation? And how do you see that happening?
Thank you. There's a hand.
Wasn't clear.
So, was your question about, because we can't hear very well up here. There we go, much better.
Okay, it's better, okay. I was saying that I'm a diaspora member, and I'm saying, for me, the diaspora is a smart city that's disconnected from the mothership. And we're often approached as clients, but not as service suppliers. So how can we be engaged to provide the skills and the expertise that's needed, right, to be part of the solution?
So the role of diaspora, basically. There's a hand straight at the front here, and yeah, right at the back.
I have a mic, so look at this.
Go for it, sorry.
Thank you. So my name is Angela Ngangan, and I'm from Microsoft. And first I want to commend our panelists for, you know, quite an interesting set of questions and the way you've handled the panel. I wanted to respond to the issue about regulation of data. And, you know, going back to the points that the panelists talked about with the fact that, you know, data is really a big opportunity for us to leapfrog in Africa and, of course, change the lives of our people. And to the point that Diane was talking about, I just wanted to give a different opinion, because from where we sit, our view is that we really shouldn't be focusing around regulating data, but protecting data. Because essentially, it's really about understanding what are the risks that you want to mitigate against. And I would say that, you know, you really want to ensure that there is no misuse, you know, in your case of personal data. So if, for example, I am, you know, one of your customers, I would want to be sure that any data that I have provided to either one of your establishments is, of course, protected from any misuse, and also that it does not fall into the hands of unscrupulous, you know, cyber criminals and so forth. And so essentially what we believe the role is of regulators, as you put, because there is a role for regulation, but it is not to regulate the data, but essentially to ensure that the privacy of the citizen is protected. So data protection, and more specifically around personal data. Because if you think about data and the opportunity that it creates, it's immense. I mean, look at Uber, look at Airbnb, and most of your organizations. A lot of the data that you collect is able to help you to guide where do you move your branches to, where do you open your next hotels, and so forth. That is not personal data, and that should be shared, not only amongst yourselves, but public. That should be basically what we call open data. But when it comes to personal data, then of course, issues around how that is protected should be then considered, and therefore the regulators or government would basically be playing a role in that. So from where we sit, I think the important areas is to really think about security of data, what risks do you want to mitigate against, and I think there's opportunities either through standards, creation of standards of how data is protected, how data is used, is areas that need to be considered, and of course ensuring that the privacy of citizens is maintained. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. We'll take a couple more questions. Please take note of those hands so that it's easier to move around. Yes, thank you.
My name is Naira Karitani. I manage a small IT company. My question, first of all, I commend both banks for going digital and investing in big tech house and mobile money and and hiring people from Airtel going to your business. But having said that, I feel like sometimes bankers often use data regulations and overburden regulation to protect their business interests. The reason I'm saying that is because worldwide today, the likes of, you mentioned Amazon, but Alibaba is going really into banking. I see you as CEO of your companies, you are in the forefront of seeing that threat of the good old brick and mortar banks that has a lot of power and a lot of, whatever they give you, you sign, even though you don't even know what you're signing, your life and everything else. Really what I'm trying to get is, how do you see your companies or these traditional banks, let's say in 10 or 20 years? Would these be the same kind of banks, or do you see yourself getting mobile license or these kind of things, or aren't you afraid of lower RPUs from some of the telcos fighting, becoming into banks or something like that? So that us young Africans, or not so young, but we get some idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There were other hands, and we'll start coming back this way. So, yeah, go for it.
Hi, my name is Gael. My question is regarding financing, especially for SMEs. Today, my partners and I, as an SME owner, we finance each other in terms of credit lines and terms of payments. And I see banking as just people taking commissions from the transfer that we do today. So what exactly, you say that you want to go from big companies to SMEs, but your rules and regulations still like prioritize big companies. So what are you in fact doing to help SMEs get easier access to finance, and finance as simple as working capital? Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe I'll check with you if you want to answer those, and then we'll take another round. All right.
Thank you. The first one on diaspora, if I understood the question correctly, because sorry, it was a little unclear, but how can you as diaspora actually help us fill some of these gaps, right? If that's right? Move here. Don't be diaspora anymore. Come over, come back home. I think, frankly, attracting the diaspora talent back in our countries and for a lot of our functions is the way to go. So I think you're more than welcome. On the second point, on Angela, on Microsoft, you're absolutely right. I think I love the way you framed it in terms of protecting data, not regulating it, right? At the same time, I think we're saying similar things in the sense that we just need to avoid it being misused, but at the same time, a huge potential and security becomes an even bigger element. So I really liked what you said. The third question about over-regulation, protecting our businesses, I wish that was the case. I wish over-regulation protected our businesses. It's important, but it's obviously it's not an easy thing for us as businesses as well, but it's a necessary element that we have to take into consideration. What do I see our banks as? And obviously I'll let Diane, I'd love to hear Diane's view as well. In 10, 20 years, I think even in 5 years, I think banks inevitably are going to become tech and digital businesses. There is no alternative. You're going to get left behind. And I think we have to start working towards that from now. What does that look like? What is that going to mean? I think it's case by case. We need to see how things go. But I can see transactions taking place. To Badru's point earlier about signing 20 documents, I can see it happening through iris scanners on your phone and fingerprint readers, etc. I mean, it's going to change everything, right? Technology, wearables are going to be so much more. We just have to keep up with the times, try and stay ahead of them. But inevitably, I think financial institutions are definitely tech and digital businesses going forward. There is no doubt about it. Lending to businesses, lending to SMEs, really, really, really important point in question. And this was the biggest frustration for me when Mara Group started, because nobody would lend any money to me. And at that time, I used to try and wear suits and ties, and nothing worked, right? I tried to put on a deeper voice, tried shaving earlier so I look older, nothing worked. I think the biggest difference from then to now, and obviously regulation is still an element, is how we can genuinely capture data, how we can genuinely get more information that we can internally create our own credit score around businesses that don't have the traditional track records or collateral or level of security that we're used to businesses having, because that's the only way we're going to move. As Atlas Mara, we've done 9 acquisitions across the continent in 7 countries and created about a $3 billion balance sheet, 728 branches, but we're only 3 years old. We've got a lot of legacy, which we're obviously evolving and taking to the next level, but that is absolutely the mission. It's the only way we're going to really boost our economies and enable entrepreneurs in the true sense. The traditional banking model on the continent has been taking customers' deposits, putting it into government treasury, making 1,000 to 1,200 basis point spreads. That, if you believe in the continent the way we do, those spreads are not going to exist. The banks that truly become banks for businesses are the ones that are going to survive. So, great point, and keep on pushing us, because we need to do more in this space and constantly keep up with the demand.
Wow, I want to compliment what Ashish has said. Diaspora, I think we have wealth of skills in the diaspora. I think the best thing they could do for us is just to come back here and make Africa smarter, because they can bring that smartness from wherever they are. On the regulation, the data regulation, I agree, but my point was more on regulating how data is shared, because protecting this is obvious. I mean, the regulators need to protect privacy, etc. But what I think we also need to work on is the standards on how you share data, because people are not, they collect a lot of data, but later on they sell it, and it can be very expensive. So we need to find a way to share data in a way that is fair and is benefiting the people in the end. The question about how do we see our banks in 10 years, this is a great question. It's a good one. I think the way I see Bank of Kigali, for example, in 10 years, I see ourselves as an aggregator of services. Because people pay for their services and people keep their money somewhere. So I see ourselves providing advisory roles and growing into investment banking, into leasing, into insurance, and all these financial products. But I see ourselves, to Ashish's points, as really an aggregator of all services, because we'll need to aggregate our systems with hospitals, with roads, with every sort of service that people pay for. So it's a good one, and I'm hoping that we'll all come back here in 10 years and see what has happened to our banks. But I really see ourselves growing into a digital company, a tech company, aggregating services and providing that business intelligence. Because somehow banks have always been strategic partners to development. So without banks, you don't get funding for all these beautiful projects. So I want to see ourselves remaining strategic partners, but providing the business intelligence and aggregating services that people pay for to get even more intelligence and really improve the services that we give. Now, on SME financing, Ashish put it very well, but I think it's also wrong to think that only banks will provide financing for SMEs, especially for startups. We cannot be at the same time a bank, at the same time a venture capitalist, at the same time, So to finance a startup ecosystem, you need a number of players, and it's not fair to just let the bank do everything. we still lend, and I agree with you, we still do business in a very traditional way. We need to step up the way we appraise projects, etc. But it's unfair to think that we can, only banks can finance the startup ecosystem. We need to look to venture capitalists. We need to look to the market. And we really need to find solutions that accommodate the needs of a startup, which cannot be only given by bank. I think I've said it all.
You've done a stellar job, actually. Wow, okay, so more hands are coming up, so we're going to take a wow. What we're going to do is we'll take a final round as the folks with the mics come back, because I can't see them, but what we're going to do is take a final round, and then after that, we're going to close, but then find ways to interact before everybody else has to run to another panel. So the folks with the mics, where are they? Just to make sure. We're going to take, Andrea, because you've asked, we'll just request you to give others a chance. There's a man who's almost jumping off his seat back there, and this is not going to be a democratic process, but let the mic go around and then we'll see. Please do not hate me. We will interact after this panel. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Rodrigo Frank. I work with Rwandan Youth under a program called Youth Impact Mission. What we do is we deal with youth, but then my question is, it goes to the bank. Banks, they seem to be interested in potential customers, and they leave behind the children, the kids. I wonder, do you have banking services for children as a way of preparing them to engage into banking services and all these financial transactions? Because as we are bringing this smart Africa mindset perspective, we should nurture the kids, the children. Sometimes it seems to be a mystery or a taboo for a kid of 5 years, 6 years to open up account, have financial transactions. And I don't think we can have smart Africa if these kids in primaries, local primaries, are not aware of all these banking services. Sometimes we invite banks to come and speak in our conferences or bring all those services. They say we are not seeing potential customers because they are high school students. So can you please make this a priority as you're making money and all these things, but then you invest in kids, children, young people, high school guys, as you're just sharpening them and preparing them to be, aware of financial transactions and all these corporate deals. Thank you very much. If you're doing that...
Sir, just in the interest of others having a question, please just wrap it up and then we can take as many questions as possible.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, there's a lady right here in the middle, and there's this gentleman, and then we'll see if time allows to take more questions. That lady there.
Thank you so much. My name is Jessie Kalisa. I'm in Rwanda. I'm in the private sector. You, moderator, allow me to come back to you, please. You insisted on something regarding SMEs. Mm-hmm. Do you mind if you go back to that question? Because you said if there are some SMEs, people... Yeah.
Right. Earlier in the discussion, I think if I understood correctly, when I was asking what's the place of SMEs when we talk about public-private partnerships, is it just the established businesses that are getting to the table, or are the SMEs who are innovating, especially in the ICT sector, also considered there? So what are some of the things that would help them get there quicker? So if you want to contribute to that, that would be great.
Okay. As someone who is a young woman in business who has just started, regarding Made in Rwanda initiative, we started with that, partnering with the government to work with them where local industries are being supported with the government of Rwanda. Okay, on the side of Rwanda, that is how some of us are coming up. On the issue of SMEs understanding ICT, this is where personally I looked at it. Because so many of us, the young SMEs growing, we end up, you find you're looking for dollars to travel somewhere. But we need people who understand to create the awareness of how you don't need to leave Rwanda with a lot of money on your pocket. This is where the banks come in, creating awareness, teaching us how to use the bank transfers. I wanted to insist on the bank transfer Two, on the bank transfer, can you do something to reduce how many days the money reaches the supplier, maybe in Dubai or in China or in Japan? That is, again, the contribution of the ICT. I don't know if that is something that can come on the behalf of innovation Ashish Thakkar was talking about. And the second question, sorry, is regarding the bank, the email hankers or the bank. When you do your bank transfer, for example, you find someone ends up taking the payment you have done to someone. So what are the banks doing? Because I think this is also facing.
Ma'am, if we could just stop there, so because of the interest of time, we have the panelists who need to run, and we need to take one more question before we close. But
my last is requesting the banks for deep analysis of the project of the SMEs. Put trust in the young developing companies like us. And what we have realized here, there's no difference between the big companies and the SMEs. You treat us the same. Kindly, can you do something regarding that? Thank you very much.
thank you. We're going to take the final question here, and then as we bring it up, we can close with parting shots as well. Yeah.
Thank you. I finally get the mic. Just a quick question. I wanted to address to the CEO of the Bank of Kigali, Mrs. Karusisi. My name is Serge Doe. I work for a company called Global Technology Partner based out of the US. We currently cover over 30 countries across Africa. We are expert on prepaid. As you know, the prepaid is today that drives the big growth of telecom across Africa. The success we're talking about telecom, we talk about prepaid. That means African mentality is geared to prepaid. So we talk about smart city, we talk about digital, and I'm talking about financial inclusion. From what I've done so far across 30 plus Africa, with all the other banks, I wanted to know if your banks have a project toward digital financial inclusion using prepaid as one of the tools and other tools going to digitalization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So over to you, and then we close.
So thank you for the interesting questions. Banking for children, it's a bit difficult because banking is normally only for adults who can sign and who have the authority. But of course, we have products for parents who want to save for their children. And I agree with you that we need to train children, young adults on financial management to get them the awareness on how to use financing, how to save, etc. This is important. I'm sure the government, through the Ministry of Education, they're doing something to have young adults trained on financial management in general. The question on bank transfers, reduce the number of days, again, this will be solved by ICT. I'm told yesterday there was a session on blockchain. I think this is a new technology that will help people do transfers instantly and in a very secured way. We are all hoping that we'll be able to implement some of these new technologies very soon, because this will improve the service experience for our customers who will be able to do transfers from their computers in a very secure way and instantly. So this is, again, will be solved by some of these new technologies. Prepaid, of course, it's a big hit in Rwanda. I'm sure you know in Rwanda, even electricity is prepaid. You buy your electricity, you spend it, and when your cash, we call it cash power, is over, you don't have power anymore. So it's absolutely a great product, and we are working to also be able to issue prepaid cards, prepaid credit cards, for people to be able to spend this way. I think Ashish can complement before we close.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll just add to some of that. I mean, the banking for kids, I think, is... I actually think it's a pretty cool concept. I think it would be a good way to Diane's point about how we can get the parents involved, but actually get the kids to start learning and owning that whole thing, that they're feeling more responsible, is something definitely look into. On the point around training of banking services, I think, I encourage you to come to our branches, go to Bank of Kigali or BPR branches. The teams can really sensitize you on the kind of products available. But more importantly, I think you touched on something as an SME, that technology is something. There's amazing friends here who are software developers and tech companies in Rwanda, in Kigali, who are actually creating some great stuff that you can really connect with and try and do stuff with. And I strongly encourage that because it will help enhance your business too. Hacking and security is something that we're investing very heavily on because that's something that client trust is critical. So that's something that's always constantly being done, and as is the other side, becoming smarter and sharper. So we have to keep our pencils very sharp too. So that's a constant process, but you can rest assured that it's very secure.
Thank you very much. Any final comments, because we're just wrapping up, or you've done a great job? Thank you very much. Please join me in giving them a hand for the round of fire they've been through and their insights. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your Transform Africa Summit experience.